Hello guys and welcome back to Dunsill Hobbies, and in today's video we are going to review none other than Aquaman. We're going to talk about Aquaman. Alright, before I start this video, I simply want to say this. I am not a DC guy. I'm mostly a Star Wars guy, but I have a couple. You can see a Marvel Iron Man comic book right there. I'm not much of a comic book reader either. But I'm a huge fan of the MCU, actually. I really enjoy the MCU, and I've never really got into DC at all. Like, when I was a kid, Teen Titans, the original Teen Titans, not Teen Titans Go, but the original Teen Titans I did watch as a kid. I really enjoyed Teen Titans. Um, and I mean, I've seen some other movies. I've seen V for Vendetta, Suicide Squad. Um, yeah, and I've never really been into DC. I've just never really been into DC. Now, a couple of my friends are DC fans, and they want me to at least watch the films and form an opinion on them. So I started watching them, and what can I say? I've seen Man of Steel. I've also seen Batman vs Superman and the Justice League. And in my opinion, and by the way, I've only seen Zack Snyder's cut of the Justice League. I haven't even seen the original Justice League. And out of those three films, and eventually we'll get to review the rest of the DC films as well, but out of those three films, I was kind of feeling like, yeah, there might be a reason why I'm not really into this. This just ain't my thing. Now, simply put, I don't want to say that Marvel is the only way you can make a film, because what I'm going to call the Marvel formula is fantastic. It works about 60-70% of the time. But if every superhero movie was just based off the Marvel formula, we wouldn't have any interesting art. Like, one of my favorite movies actually was The Joker. Actually, strangely enough, I actually really also liked Shazam. But other than the Joker, and I even like Suicide Squad. Well, I'll do a review for Suicide Squad eventually as well. But I really feel like, I'm going to admit, other than probably Joker, I really feel like the Marvel formula is what works. The Marvel formula is what I'm used to. And the Marvel formula is what makes me really feel for the characters, because they have a great formula. And that formula, to me, I'm not gonna go over the entire formula or anything like that, but I think it's the right amount of humor with a character that's necessarily not the easiest to get along with, but it has the right amount of humor in the movie. Couple of really good one-liners. Just a smart butt. Just a smart butt. Yeah, I like those type of characters. I like Tony Stark because of that. I like Thor because of that. Captain America even is a little bit of that. And a lot of the MCU actually is like that. And sometimes they try to play with the formula. Sometimes they go in a direction where it's too much, like in my opinion, Ant-Man. Ant-Man was not that good because they tried to make it more funnier than it should have been. But I think with the right amount of humor, the right amount of story, the right amount of tragic backstory and everything else, and tragedy and loss within the story itself. I think a formula like that, if you do a formula like that, you can make pretty much an epic story. Now, with that said, yeah, if that was the only formula out there, you know, then true art wouldn't exist, right? But I have to admit, that's why I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe so much. And I don't want to say that every single franchise has to be that way. But I'm telling you what, after seeing Aquaman, I loved it. I This is the first DC movie other than Joker, and I love Joker for a totally different reason. I don't love Joker because I like the character. I like Joker because of it really gets into the mind of a criminal, and I really kind of enjoyed that interest. Maybe there's a problem with the fact that I enjoyed that so much. You be the judge. But I really, I really grown attached to characters because of that formula. And look at what they did. I didn't like Batman. I didn't like Superman. I mean, Batman versus Superman. Yes, Batman was the best character in the Justice League in Batman versus Superman. Yes, I will agree. Batman was the best character there. But Batman, Superman, and then you know everything else, all the other characters within in Justice League, Flash and Cyborg. Like, I'm sorry, the formula didn't work. The formula that they used didn't work. It was different. It was a different take, and maybe some people love it, but for me, it didn't work. And so they tried the Marvel formula to me. It really feels like they took the Marvel formula and they did Aquaman. And I loved it. I this truly shows how much I just love the Marvel movies, because this movie exactly felt like a Marvel movie. Like, it did not feel like a DC movie. And maybe some people have a problem with that. Like I said, I don't think the Marvel Cinematic formula should be the only formula out there. I really think that if that was the case, then there would be no movies like Joker for me to enjoy, you know? But man, this formula so works. So, we have Aquaman, right? And we know him from Justice League, and you know, we get to see his average life, his normal story. So, what's going on with Aquaman? We get to learn how his parents got together. We get to see some jokes and humor, and I really like the fact that he has, okay, maybe not as much as Marvel, but he has a couple of one-liners. He has a couple of jokes. Uh, and you know, it's not to the point where, like, sometimes I feel like Marvel sometimes gets a little bit annoying with how many one-liners they do in movies, like, or jokes they do in movies. Like, I'm telling you what, I do not like Tom Holland's Spider-Man because of how many references that kid makes in those movies. It gets old really fast. And I like that Aquaman didn't do that. It had a couple one-liners, couple of jokes, really good humor throughout the movie. That really just made you kind of relate to the character. I think that's important. Most people, I don't know for me, but it seems like I relate to characters who have humor in their lives, who has some tragedy in their life. Like, to me, if you can't find humor in the most saddest, darkest parts of your lives, then you're never going to find humor. So I like that. Like, even though this is probably a bad example, but during the pandemic, me and my grandma went to the store, right? And we had our mask on and everything. But we just cracked up laughing when we saw a guy, you know, in a hazmat suit picking up peanut butter and pickles. We're like, what the heck is this? Well, it was funny because of how tragic it was. It's like, what the heck? If you can't find somewhere to laugh, then uh, the sadness of world is just gonna get you. So I really found that in Aquaman. I loved the humor in this movie, and I also loved how creative the movie was. Like the special effects in this movie, I'm sorry, but the special effects were better than anything in the Justice League, in Batman vs Superman, in Man of Steel. It was better than any other movie. It was better than Suicide Squad. It was better than Joker. It was like, oh my god, the special effects were amazing in this movie. And something that I really loved is because I'm a fish nerd. I'm a fish nerd. I have seahorses, for God's sakes. I'm a fish nerd. And what's really always interesting to me about the sea is how familiar it can be, and yet how alien it can be. And I really feel like this movie captured that perfectly, because there are some moments where I don't feel like I'm underwater. I feel like I'm in space. And with the huge blast and bows that happens at the end, I thought it was amazing how alien it looked, and yet how all looked underwater as well. And like the water effects as well, that's not easy to pull off with animation. And the water looked like it was fluid enough to actually be water, but solid enough to actually form weapons and shields and stuff like that. Like, I loved that. There was so much of this movie, so much that I loved. And yeah, we get the basic backstory, and then Aquaman. The story is basically Aquaman. Uh, his name is Arthur, and his mother found, of course, one day she swept up on land, and his dad found her at the bottom of the tower, saved her life, and they fell in love. Well, then she had to go back. She had to go back to her homeworld, which I say homeworld, but you know what I mean. She had to go back to Atlantis, and when they go back to Atlantis, because she technically betrayed them because she fell in love with someone else, they took her and executed her. They threw her into the abyss for a monster to eat. And Aquaman goes throughout the rest of his life knowing that he's pretty much the reason why his mom died. So he blames himself. That's really hard, obviously. So I really liked the character development and the character attachment and how you feel for Aquaman in this movie. But it's not to the point where, like, it's depressing. Like in Superman, like in Man of Steel, that stuff is just so depressing and so dark. In this movie, we have some bright and colorful colors that really contrast with the scenes. It's perfect, in my opinion. This is the Marvel formula to a T, and I love the way they did it in this movie. And then, yeah, eventually, because basically there's this bad guy that attacks actually the city of Atlantis, where Aquaman is from. He attacks the city of Atlantis. Turns out that it was actually Aquaman's brother who paid him to attack them because he wants to create war so he can and take over the land above. And who protects the land above? Aquaman. And I mean, my god, it's Aquaman. Like, people think fish guy that talks to fish. How lame could that be? You took a lame character and made him absolutely awesome in this movie. Like, he was so cool. And yeah, his abilities, and I loved how he was training and how they went through the flashbacks, and they did something really interesting with the flashbacks where as the movie goes on, you don't even know that it's a flashback until you see young Aquaman, and you're like, oh, this is a flashback. And then as the camera moves away around Aquaman, we return to the normal life, the day that this movie takes place in, and I love that. And then of course the story is Aquaman trying to go find the first king of Atlantis. He has to find his trident, because as he finds the trident, he will be marked the true king, and he'll be able to take his rightful place and beat his brother. And yeah, there's so much that I could talk about with this movie. And the only reason why I'm not going to say any more is because you have the gist of the story. But if you've never seen Aquaman, go and watch it, especially if you're a Marvel fan. If you don't like DC at all, like me, like I'm not a DC guy, go and watch Aquaman. You will not be sorry. This truly feels like a Marvel movie. Aquaman truly feels like a Marvel movie, and that's what I loved about it. Now again, just before we end the video, yeah, I don't want this to be the absolute norm, because then we wouldn't have masterpieces like the Joker movie. But I will say this, I truly feel like if they made more movies like this, if DC made more movies like this, where they took a basic formula and just changed it up a little bit more to feel like DC, because even Aquaman doesn't feel like DC enough to me, to call it a DC movie. That's what I loved about it, but again, it should feel more like a DC movie, and it doesn't. A lot of people will have problems with that. I can understand that. But I think they can take both formulas, the DC formula, and add in a little bit of what came from Aquaman. I think if they did that more often, they would make a lot more money. And I hope that they do that with Flash. I hope that they do that with Shazam 2. Only time will tell if they realize how much this Aquaman movie really changed the game. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if I'm just crazy. Thank you guys for watching, and I am out for now. Bye. I loved Aquaman. Can I say this? Uh-oh. I don't know if I should say this. I actually think that I might like this movie more than Thor Ragnarok. Ah!